All right, we are at the Evansville Wartime Museum today, and we are interviewing Tom Yoder. And Tom, I'm going to ask you if you would give us your full name and your date of birth and where you were born.
Okay. Thomas Ray Yoder Jr. My dad was a senior, my son is the third. I was born in Long Beach, California in November 2nd of 1953. And was there for about 4 years till my mother, who was from Louisville, Kentucky, looked at my dad from California and said, "I've had enough of this place, I'm going home, are you going too?" So my dad and I went with her to Louisville, and I was raised in Louisville. And south side of Louisville, good old Pleasure Ridge Park. And was lucky enough to get a job out of high school working for Generous Electric, and they paid my way to University of Louisville's engineering school for a couple of years. And then I got out and joined the Air Force, became a maintenance officer in the Air Force.
And what year was that you joined the Air Force?
Late 72.
Okay. So once you joined the Air Force, where did they send you for your training?
Well, my eyes were not good enough to be a pilot. And I come from a military family. And so I was taught not to try to beat the system, work the system. So I went in, even though I had a college degree, I went in, enlisted as a crew chief. The Air Force back then would guarantee the school you would went to. They didn't guarantee the job you'd get, but they guaranteed you'd go to school. Mm-hmm. So I went to the crew chief school, aircraft tech, in Wichita Falls, Texas, Shepherd Air Force Base, and completed tech school there. And after a short leave, they shipped me out to Shaw Air Force Base in Sumter, South Carolina. And I was there as a crew chief for a little over a year and a half. The exact amount of time you had to have for the FAA to accept your training in the Air Force as a mechanic. That was half my goal. I got that knocked out, and then I went through a program that the Air Force, I don't know what this stuff is nowadays, but back then they called it Bootstrap. And it was basically an OTS program. And they paid for me to go through OTS and get a crossover degree from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, which paid off real well. So I became a maintenance officer. And from there, you almost always stay at Shaw, unless you're TDY. Once you're a recce, you're always a recce. We were a reconnaissance squadron. And from there, back then, the Air Force actually let maintenance officers fly because they didn't have no pilots to do the shop work, you know. And so I ended up going through flight training back at Shaw and then at Edwards. Flew T-37s, T-38s, eventually ended up flying T-39s with a bunch of generals around, and F-4 Phantoms, RF-4Cs. And again, once you get out of school, you go right back to Shaw, and from Shaw you go anywhere in the world they want a picture. We were the only tactical reconnaissance squadron in the Air Force at that time. There was a guard unit out of Berkshire. And we were all flying RF-4Cs. And then I ended up spending a short time over at Topley in Thailand. That was late 74, early 75, when things were wiping down. My job was to basically fly low, fast over the jungle, look for hot spots, you know. Most of the time we weren't there, but we were there. You know, we all know how the military works. But anyway, pulled a tour there, and they sent me back to Shaw. And by then, the Air Force was riffing a lot of people. It was late 70s. And the guard unit in Louisville was transitioning from RF-101 Voodoos to F-4 Phantoms. That worked. I could spend 4 more years to finish up my 10 flying a desk at Shaw, or I could go home to Louisville. With the training that I got in the Air Force, I came out of the Air Force at that time. I had an airline transport pilot's license that I transitioned to the FAA, and a mechanic's license, and I could either be a captain in the Air Force at a desk for 4 more years, or I could go be in the Guard for 4 more years. I didn't fly there, I was a maintenance officer, maintenance training officer, because they didn't know the airplane I did. And I flew corporate jets for companies out of Louisville, you know, so I could either be a captain in the Air Force or captain flying an airplane with gold-plated buckles and push-button bar. It was a pretty easy decision to make, you know. But pulled 4 years in the Guard and got out. And after that, I ended up flying corporate jets all around the world, mostly out of Houston, Texas. I was there for about 35 years because, like I say, the Air Force riffed. 8,000 pilots a year I came out. There was only 8,000 pilot jobs in the United States, so they doubled the usage, you know. So every pilot I knew was working for IBM selling computers or something, you know. But because I did have the AAP ticket with the ATP, then I was able to find jobs working mostly for like oil companies and stuff. You fly an airplane to Caracas and it breaks, you may not be allowed to work on it, but you can watch it, make sure they do it right when you come home. And so the oil company saw value there. I did that pretty much for 20-some years.
So with going back to your F4 days when you flew the F4 and you were flying over these jungles and things, did you ever have any frightening experiences there? Or,
most of the time you were too busy to be frightened, you know. The RF-4C was the fastest Phantom because it was the lightest fuselage, and they put E engines in it because they were the biggest engines we had back then, because they wanted you to go get the pictures and come home. They didn't want you to be slugged out, they wanted the pictures. So there were a couple of times that it got a little hairy. I do have on my DD-214 a note from a flight where I hit 2.27 on the Mach meter, which is faster than most anything would go back then. The only thing that fast was in that day, back in the early 70s, was a MiG-21. And I had one of those a half mile behind me, and I was doing 2.27 and he was doing 2.5 or 2.25. So I was pulling away from him not very quickly.
Yeah.
So that was a little exciting. But most of it was just go do your job and come back, you know. We were down, so most of what we did was right down in the treetops, you know. You get up very high, they shoot at you. Down low, if you're running 400 knots, it's hard to get a shot at you. You know, the poor guys in the wop-wops, they got beat up all the time. But by the time the bad guys knew we were coming, we were already, 2 miles away knocking the dust off the trees. So it was pretty good stuff.
Now you were doing recon, so you're flying low looking for enemy bases, artillery, anything of that nature?
We had we had cameras. We had cameras up in the nose. We could fly by at 20,000 feet, take a picture of your hand and tell you what the inscription on your ring was. Unbelievable cameras. But most of what we did was infrared stuff because we were flying over jungles, and cameras don't do you a lot of good there. But we had multiple infrared sensors up and down front sides of the airplane. We might not even know we saw anything. We'd just go busting across there. And we would take it home, they'd download the information, and then they'd send the E's out to bomb whatever we found. Usually it was a truck park or maybe a camp, because we pick up campfire, hot exhaust. And when it was interesting was when you went in the first time, they never saw you coming. You were gone for there. But when the E's would come in there and nail whatever you found, then we had to go back and take pictures to see if they got it. Anybody that lives through what they did after I came in the first time was waiting for me to come back because they knew we were going to come back and get pictures. So some of those were exciting. I remember seeing people throw rocks and spears at me. We were down low. But most of all, it was just to do your job and go home. Again, I was a maintenance officer there, so I didn't have a flying schedule. But if we had something come up, and I was trained to fly for maintenance purposes, if we had something come up and there was a short pilot that day, and they say, "Hey, you want this?" And I'm like, "Sure," off we go. So I didn't fly a lot of missions over there, but enough.
Yeah.
Enough. It was interesting.
Sure, I bet.
Interesting.
So then you would fly back to Thailand, and then your base was in Thailand.
Yeah, Top League, Wartime. Royal Thai Air Force Base on the north side of Thailand. We flew mostly over Laos, Cambodia, you know, looking for the Ho Chi Minh Trail most of the time. And it was not a fixed object. It was like a snake trying to step on it. It was always moving a little bit. That's the way they say it a lot. So we were always just trying to find that so the F4Es could come in, you know, hit them with 500 pounders and napalm, whatever they had that day. And we would also do bait missions for the wild weasels. The F4s would go in, they had anti-radiation missiles, HARMs, high-speed anti-radiation missiles, and they would try to get the anti-aircraft radar or guns to lock on them, and they'd shoot this missile down the radar beam. Well, we were faster and lighter, so guess who they used for bait? We'd go out there and fly around. As soon as they locked on us, we hauled button, and the E's would come in and take them out, you know. But there was a couple of times that it got interesting. So, but it's one of those things, you live through your life, and it was an incredible time. The Air Force was incredibly good to me, and I'd never do it again. I was young and foolish and bulletproof then. I'm not anymore.
So you spent 35 years as a corporate pilot, and mostly in Houston.
Mostly out of Houston, a little bit of time out of Virginia, a little bit. Corporate pilots go everywhere. You know, I lived in 7 cities and 5 states in 5 years, kind of stuff. But the Air Force was good to me, and it opened doors that I never would have had any other way. And it's been a great life. So.
And then you retired to Indiana.
Well, I lived in Houston for 35 years, and my mom still lived in Louisville, and she got sick, and my sister was taking care of her, and she was kind of dragging my sister down. You know how caretakers are a tough job. So I ended up leaving Houston and coming to help take care of my mom, and she made it another couple of years. And right before my mom passed, I met this cute little blonde in Evansville. Been stuck here ever since. We all have a cute little blonde, changed our life story, so that's nice.
All right, well, is there anything else you'd like to tell us about your career? Any stories you could think of you'd like to share with us?
No.
Otherwise,
not really.
If you had advice to give to young people today from your experiences,
wow.
Do you have anything you'd like to share that?
I don't know. Life's what you make out of it. Most of us get pretty close to the same opportunities. Some people see them as opportunities, and some people see them as obstacles. That's why I stayed in Texas as long as I did. They have a different attitude. You know, they don't have obstacles. They just, oops, there's a chance to make money. Let's go do that. You know, they have a great attitude there that way. I'm not the only ex-military guy that thinks that we should, every young person in this country should go spend 2 years in service. You want free college? Go earn it. You know, I was free. I never had any debts, you know, but get out from mom's house and go see the world a little bit, and if you're lucky, see parts of the world that make you really glad to come back here. So that would be my suggestion.
Well, thank you. We thank you for your time today and for sharing your experiences and your life story with us. And we appreciate you sharing with our Evansville Wartime Museum viewers.
So it's a tremendous place you have here. Always delighted to come by and see it.
Thank you.
Thank you.